podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to Zero Pucks Given, the UK ice hockey podcast. We're in partnership with the Hockey Art Co, hockey clothing for hockey people, worn by the best and hated by the rest. Listeners to Zero Pucks Given and the ZPG network get a 10% discount off everything site-wide at hockeyartclothing.co.uk. Just use the code ZP10 upon checkout to get your discount. We are also on the Sports Social Podcast Network, the biggest podcast network in Europe. 450 plus podcasts covering over 15 sports from right across Europe. Absolutely fantastic stuff. And there is still a chance for you to get your Manscaped products with a 20% discount if you use the code 0pucks20, all caps, all one word, 0pucks20, 20% off everything from manscaped.com. Welcome along to episode 104. This is going to be a little sort of a best of. There's got about 9-10 clips from episodes from throughout the season, little sort of 2 to 3 minutes snippets of some really great episodes and some really great interviews that if you missed them, you can then go back and listen to the whole thing or have a look back through the library on Spotify, Apple Podcasts and on YouTube if there's anything that you missed, because believe me, it was all fantastically good stuff. Such wonderful people to talk to and some really, really great stories that we got out of so many people. We, of course, had a little bit of hockey news coming up. We've had the GB squad that are out in the World Championships out in Czechia. They had a sort of a little bit of an up and down opening weekend, a fantastic performance on the Saturday. Saw them lose narrowly 4-2 to Canada after taking the lead, and nearly taking the lead just before that, having a goal washed out for an innocuous goaltender interference call. But yeah, a 4-2 defeat to Canada and then an 8-0 defeat to Finland. They're back in action in this week. Just tonight, actually, I believe they're back in action against Switzerland. So you can keep up with all the GB stuff on their Twitter, of course, or if you have Premier Sports, you will be able to watch it live. We've also had a few announcements in the Britain division as well, of mainly actually of players leaving. The first one that came really was Streatham announcing that Brandon Miles was not going to be re-signing. And then lo and behold, he signed with the Slough Jets. So they've kind of put that real mature enforcer role in there that me and Chris Beale spoke about that they needed. Chris suggested that would be a really good move, and that is what has happened. Brandon Miles has joined the Slough Jets. The Slough Jets are, however, without any netminders at the moment. Brett Massey has left. We're not revealing quite yet where Brett has gone because nothing's really been decided with the full league structure. And Rory McGibbon has had a really fantastic opportunity to go and play abroad, so he has taken that as well. Streatham have actually just announced that Nate Gregory, the netminder, will not be returning next year, and neither will Ben Ely Newman. We'll wait and see where they will land for next year's hockey. Another couple of announcements. We've had new shirts for the Chieftains that look very, very nice indeed. Look forward to seeing them in the flesh. We've had a new women's team out of Haringey, the Greyhounds. So all the stuff that comes out of the Women's League, you could probably catch. In fact, I know you can catch. And this is the biggest news that's come out of Zero Pucks Given. The ZPG network is live and it's up and running. And the first podcast from it is ZPG Ice Maidens. Absolutely ecstatic to have been joined by Adam Mackman from the Ice Maidens. Does brilliant work over on his Facebook page, live streaming, commentating, interviews with players and coaches. It's all incredible stuff, as well as maintaining his website that has all the match reports and all the news from the Women's National Ice Hockey League in this country. It's now a podcast as well. So Adam will be getting those episodes out weekly, right up until the playoffs for the women's hockey that is happening at the end of May. And then obviously next season, it's just going to be a regular thing. So the ZPG network is live and well. We do also have ZPG Buffalo that will be happening next year. Risha, who's the ring announcer down at Basingstoke Buffalo, she'll be doing a podcast that will be covering how Basingstoke get on, especially after winning the playoffs last year. I'm sure they'll be having high hopes for next season. So let's get into it then. There's a few clips. a few episodes. If you do want to know what clips they are and from what episodes, have a little look in the description and it will tell you down there, and you can follow the links to find them if you want to watch them or listen to them in full. Really did enjoy speaking to everybody this year. Everybody was so open. Everybody was a really great talker as well. Even some people that weren't too sure about coming on, then they came on and they just found it quite relaxed, and we had good, relaxed, open conversations. Once again, a massive thank you to all of you guys for listening and for getting behind ZPG Ice Maidens. The first episode of that charted at number 7 in the charts, which is absolutely brilliant. So really, really glad that we're getting that little bit more detail out there about the women's ice hockey. So again, yeah, please enjoy these clips. It's been a fantastic year of guests. So listen along. It's such a, I mean, obviously I've seen that you do skaters as well as goalies as well.
Yeah.
But because it's such a niche sport, there's not many places in this country to play it. And particularly net minding is just, I mean, why anyone would want to stand in between them pipes and take a sort of 3-inch circled vulcanized rubber at upwards of 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, I mean, there is a level of insanity, and I can say that I'm qualified too. There's definitely a level of insanity in goalies. But I think, look, in all seriousness, from a neurological point of view, from a brain aspect, what they have to do and the complexity of the role they find themselves in is incredible. And I think, in all honesty, I've never done it, so I can't talk firsthand. But I think that when you look at the kind of the mechanics almost and the process of what they do, it shouldn't be possible. The speed that they have to make decisions, the speed that they have to process information. We're lucky that we've been able to kind of analyze high level goalies and see what they see at various different points. And, we're talking fractions of a second to be able to see information, process information, and make decisions on that information, and then obviously act on that information, because what you find is obviously the game speeds up, right? As you go through the levels, the game speeds up, and equipment kind of falls into the player's benefit, if you like. Sticks get better, they get a better whip on shots. They don't need to kind of slap shot anymore. They can release at speed. So the processing time of information is less and less and less. And, without going into too much detail, like people like USA Hockey have come to me and said, right, how do we keep up with this? Because goalies have got this job. And if you look at the NHL last year, the NHL had more goals scored in it than it has done for years.
Yeah.
Right, games were finishing like 9-7 and things like that. And the head of USA Hockey goaltending reached out to me and sort of said, look, what do we need to do with goalies to give them a sporting chance? Because everything scientifically that we know that goalies need to stop pucks, players know as well.
Yeah.
Right. So subsequently, we try and renege those situations. So we kind of always knew that goalies need a good look at the puck to be able to stop it. We didn't always know the science behind that. Do you know what I mean? So if you spoke to a goalie, they know they have to really see the puck to stop it, but they didn't really know why.
Yeah.
But it comes down to something called the quiet eye theory, which is basically the amount of time that your gaze anchors on something before, during, and after it happens. And when you get the relevant time right and the gaze anchor is strong, what happens is it kind of sends a message to your brain that says, right, based on the information I can see, based on what I know, so previous knowledge, pattern recognition, that shot's going to go from there to there in roughly this amount of time. So I don't watch it. I just predict from the information that I see.
Yeah.
So we knew that goalies need to see pucks, right? So what do? We whack a load of bodies in front of them so they can't see the puck, right? Or that sort of stops that. And then we know that we like to see a static puck. That gives us more chance of the information, because when the puck's moving, we have to be better with our kind of vision to be able to hold our attention on it. So, okay, you want a static puck, right? Well, we'll kind of get rid of slap shots then, because that was the ultimate static puck pretty much. So now we'll go to quick release toe drags, right? And it's like everything that we know goalies need, the playing side of it has kind of gone, okay, cool. We know you need that, so you're not going to have it.
Yeah. Yeah. They're combating it every step of the way, aren't they?
Every step of the way, yeah. And then it gets to the point of, right now, how do we eventually kind of even that out? How do we get goalies to a point where they've got a fair shot at it? Because even the way goalies see a puck compared to players is different. So if you think about, as a goalie, you dial into the puck, so you narrow your visual field. You want to get as much information from it as you can. Whereas players widen their visual field, right? They want to see everything. So ultimately, when a rebound comes out off a goalie, the goalie's got a very narrow visual field. They're searching for it, whereas the player has got a wider visual field and can pick it up quicker. So that's why we now see people shooting for rebounds more. It changes the angle of the shot, but also it's more difficult for the goalie to pick up. So, there's loads of things that goalies have a disadvantage of. And I think, going back to the original thing, it's by far, in my opinion, and I can, like I say, I've never done it. It's by far one of the hardest things you can do in sport, to be an ice hockey goalie.
Joining in, obviously, D2, a lot of that cast was already assembled, and had probably already sort of formed some close bonds. Did you find it was mirroring the film that the new Ducks had kind of created a group and the old Ducks were in a group, or did everyone just blend in?
I believe we all blended in, because basically for the first, I think 2 months, I don't know, time was different for me back then. Maybe it was only a month, but we had hockey camp for maybe a month and a half. Yeah. So through most sports, people bond. So yeah, we were friends right away. I think what we would do is we would have hockey in the morning, and then we would have to do our 3 hours of required school. And then I think we would hit the ice again or do some sort of dry land training. But yeah, just because of all that, even before we're filming, we just had a month of that. And then we just became friends right away. Yeah, everybody was just super welcoming and super nice. I mean, as much as kids are, but nobody was ever mean to each other, or no, there weren't little groups. Everybody just kind of hung out together and did their thing.
You can see, actually, I've just actually been watching D2 today, just as a refresher. The chemistry between you all is just brilliant. Yeah,
it was really good. Yeah, it was a fun cast to be part of.
So obviously, being Canadian, I take it you could already skate and probably play hockey to some sort of level before you did this.
Yeah, I mean, I always wondered if that's why I got the part. But yeah, I had played since I was 10 years old, so I had been playing for 2 years before that. And I always wanted to play hockey. I think I bothered my parents for about 3 years before they actually had either the time or the income to put me through hockey. But yeah, basically from grade one of my closest friends had played hockey for a long time. And I guess in grade one, you're 6 or 7. And then finally by the age of 10, I managed to convince my parents, finally, I want to go play. And then we just went down to the used hockey store and bought a bunch of used equipment. And then I just went on the ice, and I don't think I really knew how to play. I mean, I went skating with friends, so I knew how to skate a little bit. But it was the first time I ever put on equipment on the ice. I'm not even sure if I had all the right equipment. I didn't have a jersey. I remember putting on a sweatshirt, an actual Club Monaco sweatshirt. I don't know if you have Club Monaco over there in the UK.
I've seen it. Yeah. Well, I mean, after your stint in Canada as a youth player, your captain Harrison Lillis asked me to ask you about this. You went to the World Under-20 Championships, and you finished 4th in the rankings of the points with some pretty big names.
Yeah.
So what was that tournament like for you?
Oh, it was hilarious from the day they won. First, we got to the airport where we were missing our luggage, and we were missing a few guys. They just disappeared somewhere. Which one do you talk about? Because I went to 2. I went one in Vancouver, one in Minnesota.
The Minnesota.
One in Vancouver, Minnesota, we were missing luggage. Vancouver, we were missing guys. It was just chaotic, and we really had a good team. We had Jaroslav Halak in the net. We had some really superstar names. Well, including me back in time. I was ranked to go to NHL top 2 lines, but then I had broken jaw and on 2 different places, and I had concussion where I couldn't really like even eat for almost 6 months, and I lost 25 kilos, and the NHL teams just lost the taste of me. But this tournament, me, Evgeny, and Malkin, we stay in the same hotel, and me and Malkin, we went on the balcony, we talked, and he says, here we go, we're going to NHL. You're going to Tampa Bay, I'm going to Pittsburgh Penguins. I said, no, man, there's lots of work to do before we get there. He says, no, it's done. And I even signed a contract before he did. And he is now Hall of Fame, and I never played a game. So injuries are injuries, and when you play hard, you always find people that understands it from the hockey, like you and others. But when people don't know what hockey is about, they might just doubt you if you were ready for that time,
Yeah. Well, NHL season has just sort of kicked off in the last couple of weeks, isn't it? We've seen some good results coming in. There's been a big influx of players, I think, hasn't there? And what do you think's been behind that?
Playoffs, for a start. I think that we held such a successful event in Sheffield over the summer. We had, over the 3 days, it was the bank holiday weekend, over the 3 days, we had hundreds of people coming in for either individual games or buying the weekend passes. We sold 211 live streams for that weekend as well. First time it's ever been monetized. And we charge £5 on the door all weekend, and we charge £5 for every for all games, one flat fee, just to test to see if people would pay to watch women's hockey. A lot of people did. The U16s girls games were the showcase events of the weekend, unexpectedly so.
Yeah, they were.
But everybody came out of that weekend saying the under-16s girls games were absolutely like thrilling to watch, really exciting, loads and loads of fans, not just the parents, but people actually there cheering the teams on. They were one of the higher amounts of purchases through the live streams out in the elite final. So I think that philosophy that we all sort of subscribe to as females, if you can see it, you can be it. There were lots of girls who had attended the weekend that teams maybe didn't make it, or parents that have brought their younger female children along. And I think that might have had a push then for them to get signed up to see actually there is under-16s girls. It can be played at a high level. It's not just about playing mixed hockey with the boys, which some young girls don't want to do. They might not be at that standard. They might not have started when they were 6 years old. They might be 12, 13, 14, which in mixed hockey, it is quite late. But if there's an under-16s program that can develop the girls and play at a higher level, you suddenly get a higher take-up on that. We've had Bristol enter an under-16s girls team this season. We had Leeds enter an under-16s girls team this season. Cambridge have just entered a women's senior team. So we've seen a big growth in parts of the country that either already have established women's program and bringing younger program in, or, as in Cambridge's case, brand new team, new rink, new team, and they've gone straight in with a senior women's team, which to me, again, and they're not all existing players, they're players that have signed up from elsewhere, or they're players that are new to the game. So it's just about providing those opportunities, but also giving a showcase to it and a platform, and actually having people see it in person and see that it's accessible and see that it is actually a product as well as just something that's kind of played after the men are finished.
The start of your career, obviously, it would have been incredibly young. I'd imagine skates on your feet before you could properly walk.
Yeah, I think the first photo of me with skates on, I was like 2 or 3 years old. My dad was dragging me around on the outdoor rink. I had an outdoor rink in my backyard from the age of like 5 till about 12, I think, when we moved. We lived out on an acreage, so we had a lot of land. My dad went out of his way to build a full-on ice hockey rink. He had my favorite team's logo at center ice, so I was pretty lucky in that sense. And yeah, that's like my fondest memories of hockey growing up, having the whole neighborhood over and just play hockey until you're getting called in to go to bed for school in the morning.
Are you Flamesley, Calgary Flamesley?
Yeah, Calgary Flames fan.
Yeah, isn't it about time a Canadian won that Stanley Cup?
It's been way too long. I know the Flames were close in 2004. We're pretty salty talking about that still back home, but yeah, it'd be nice to see a Canadian team hoist the cup.
Well, I'm a Leafs fan, so I know plenty about being salty about not winning anything.
yeah, they've got a tough history.
So then you joined the Chieftains from the Arizona State University setup. So how did that come about? You sort of playing as a junior and then getting into Arizona State?
Yeah, I was honestly, I think I was 19 or 20 years old playing juniors back in Canada, and just kind of getting to that point where school was obviously the next thing on my mind. And I was gonna actually just hang the skates up and go to school locally, and then I got contacted by Arizona State, I think in the middle of the summer, and it's kind of a no-brainer. I mean, being able to show up to the rink in shorts and your flip-flops every day, it's hard to pass up on. I mean, the weather there it's like paradise. So I do miss that kind of weather, but yeah, it was a fun 4 years. Obviously we had COVID, so we had to miss a full season, which kind of sucked, but I definitely improved my golf game being down there for 4 years. So that was a bonus.
Have you ever got out at Scottsdale?
Yeah, I lived about 10 minutes from Scottsdale, so we had to get dragged out of there a few weekends, but no, we had a pretty responsible team. Obviously we have fun when there's no weekend. We have some games or some weekends, with no games, but Scottsdale, yeah, it's a tough spot to beat for sure.
Yeah, how's that par 3 16th?
Sorry?
How's that par 3 16th?
The 316th, what do you mean, sorry?
On Scottsdale course, the par 3.
Oh yeah, believe it or not, I was at the Waste Management Open 2 years ago. I got to witness one of the hole-in-ones, and all I remember is beer cans literally being thrown in every which direction. That was probably the coolest golf memory I have, is being able to go to that. I got to go to it 3 times while I was down there, so I was spoiled in that sense. But yeah, that tournament is one of a kind. It's pretty loud, and you can have some fun walking around that course.
On to something slightly more positive, you got into commentary as well. Ice hockey. How did you find your way into that? Was that through doing the podcast?
Well, so when I was still with 4000, we actually get invited along with the Steel Dogs because obviously pals with Ali Cree and always had a good sort of relationship with the Steel Dogs, and obviously I live around here and going down to the games, and just a bunch of beauties, a lot of them, just such good hockey people up here in Sheffield. But when we went down, we did a sort of bit of a pre-match interview with Roger and their team for Steel Dogs TV, where the 3 of us spoke about how it's going to go. And then at the start of the game, each intermission, and then at the end of the game, we all sort of took one of those intermissions to say a piece about how it's going to go on the headset on the stream. I did my bit, which I thought went all right, even though I was like a bottle of Buckfast and about 10 bottles of Bud deep. And then sort of from there, I got, obviously you get Jonathan Felney and Roger that do it up there, and Jonathan Felney's obviously predominantly with the Steelers. And when he's not there, Roger needs somebody else, so he kind of drafted me in for a couple of games. Kind of found my feet doing it, and then I was a regular whenever Jonathan went there. And he was with the Steelers, and I loved it. I got on well with it, and I got some good feedback from like away fans that listened to it, and people that heard bits and bobs. And I'm obviously relatively still new to it, but it's something I've really enjoyed. And it's what I said to you at the sort of start of this, was kind of finding your way in hockey and how you can stay involved in what you enjoy doing. And it's definitely something that I hope I'll pursue, because now I've managed to I've got onto the Steelers comms with Jonathan over at the arena as well, so that's something I'm going to sort of try and double hat next season when I get back from the deployment.
Yeah, and also the women's playoff finals, I believe you commentated on.
I did, and that was off of it was Faye Andrews. You know Faye, don't you?
Yeah, Faye's been on.
Yeah, she's fantastic and does so much for the women's game. And for me, that was something that I hadn't had a chance to go along or actually went out my way to watch the women's game, especially the elite finals. And Faye messaged me asking me if I'd be willing to do it. I said 100% if it shines more of a light in the women's game and what we're trying to achieve and publicise it and get it out there and hopefully make it sort of professional production and the way that we commentate on it and gain a bigger foothold and visibility for it. I'm all for it. And going along and watching those women in now the elite finals, there's some unbelievable players there. And Abby Sylvester was one that jumped out at me straight away. She was one that I thought was absolutely phenomenal. I know she played for the Warriors, and there's a couple of the women there that sort of play in IHL, and I played against Angela Taylor when I played at Slough as well. And I've seen all of the talent that's out there, but seen it firsthand in the way that they play. That was a great experience as well. I really enjoyed that. And if Faye will have me, I don't know if she wants me back, but it's definitely something that I'd go back to because it was another look at what's going on. And the more that you sort of look at all the different disciplines of hockey, I think is excellent. I've stood at the side of the rink watching the Steel Kings with the kids as well, the para hockey, which is mind blowing to me how they can do that as well. And
yeah,
I just think there's so much good to be got from publicising all of the hockey, not just the way the IHL just now just putting snapshots of Kieran Brown scoring 75,000 goals every season and his video reel. They should be publicising everything that's going on within their umbrella rather than just looking at the National League, even though it is a fantastic league that I've got a lot of support for.
Yeah, I mean, one of the games, especially from last season, that I think if anyone wants to know what Solent is all about, watch that playoff semi-final with Invicta. Just watch the last 5 minutes. And that was absolutely astonishing.
Yeah, it was pretty good. It was. Don't get me wrong. I was on the ice. I think it was Husker scored the third, and we were slightly pushing then at 2-1 down. I think it was 2-1 down. And the goal was just out of nothing. I think he came down the right wing, whipped in a little twist of wrister, and in it went. And I just looked up to the Evans and thought, that's it. And then I'm a very sort of like proud person. Like I'm a very like, no, that's not it. That we'll find a way. And I'm very big belief in myself. Some people call me delusional, but it's just a belief that we'll figure it out in the end. Does that make sense? So we called a timeout, and I said to the guys, this is what we're going to do. Like, we're just going to get Chico off for the face-off. We're going to run this set play, and here it is. This is what I want us to do. And it worked. And we're all looking at each other going, there's still like 2 minutes left. And we had no timeout at that point. So I said, let's just do exactly the same thing. And if I'm being really honest, I thought Invicta would have seen what we did in the first one and how we overloaded one side, and we were just drawing to that side and counteracted it. But somehow, hooker by crook, the hockey gods, as it were, whatever you want to call it, same play, worked exactly the same way. And yeah, the rest is history. Obviously, they unfortunately, as you'd have heard, self-combusted a little bit.
Yeah.
And it almost felt like that 5 minutes took everything out of us. And so come Sunday, even though we were there and we were ready, we weren't. Does that make sense? The goal was in the first minute. When I reflect on that weekend, I just think all of our emotion, our energy was put into that last 5 minutes against Invicta and the overtime to get the eventual winner, and the emotion at the end of that game with the amount of support we had there was just unbelievable. I just kind of felt like mentally we needed to be like, yeah, that's okay, right, on to the next one. Does that make sense? Like that.
But that's what you said to me afterwards, because we spoke after that game. It must have been about 10 o'clock at night, still in the rink at Milton Keynes.
Yeah.
And you said, that was brilliant, but we need to forget it and start thinking about tomorrow. Yeah,
and it was really strange because lots of us hadn't arranged to stay up. Lots of us were, I've got young children, for example, so I was a bit like, well, if we go out, I'm not wasting a night up. I want to get home and see my children. Also, I don't mind driving back and coming back up. But that emotion of that evening meant that lots of us ended up just booking somewhere last minute, staying up, went out for some food. And we woke up, I woke up to a message from Chico saying, "This is going to be it. This is my last hurrah."
Oh wow, that's how you found out, is it?
Well, a private message. It was very long. It was like 6 a.m. or whatever. And then obviously he told the boys in our group chat, "This is going to be my last game." And I think just emotions just went from us, if that makes sense. Like, it was to lose we didn't lose him for the final, of course.
No.
But to have the biggest pillar in your club for the last 10 years, cool time, which no one would blame him for. The guy was an absolute warrior. His body is destroyed because of his commitment to our club. It just meant that emotion from the Saturday, of going through that entire process, and then everyone having to process the fact that this might be, we always thought, well, maybe not. We always joke in our room, we've got a couple of guys that love to retire and then not retire and all the rest of it. So
you see that happening all over the place, didn't you? Retirements lasting 3 months and stuff.
Yeah, hockey's it's an addiction.
Well, from that game, I mean, they talk about some sports. I'm going to stand up. I'll probably disappear off the camera.
That's
because of the green screen. They talk about sports players liking memorabilia. This is yours.
Is it?
From that playoff semi-final.
Oh, bloody hell.
It broke in half in the third. You went to take a shot and it just grazed the ice and snapped in half. And
didn't go in the stand, did it? Didn't fly in the stand. Did I give
no,
that
it didn't fly in the stand, unfortunately. I spoke to your equipment manager when I was waiting for you to come out of the locker room. And
hey, I'm humbled by that. That's that for us, that for me, I'm just if I look at it, I'm just a guy who plays hockey because he enjoys it. And when I see people, like yourself, or when we were at that playoff weekend and we've got 50 to 70, I don't want to say 100 because I don't think there was 100 there, but
on the second day there probably was, because more came up on the second day, and you had a fan who had a DeWalt drill powered horn.
Yeah, he loves it. But that for me is so humbling as a person, because we're not, I go to work Monday to Friday, 9 to 5.
Yeah,
I'm not a professional sportsman, but to see so many people support us and want you to take a picture of them, or you get a little bit starstruck by it, even at my age, at 30, however old I am. But
yeah, you're not going to say that.
Yeah, don't have that. NHL stats will crack our age up again. We'll be double the age. It's just so it's like I said, you're a bit starstruck by it, or if that makes sense, you're a bit overwhelmed by it. You're humbled by it. You to have that there, mate, is a humbling thing for me, because ultimately, who am I? Do you know what I mean? But
I mean, logistically, because I've not been down. It's, in fairness, a little bit out of the way for me. If I'm ever down that way, I'm absolutely just popping in just to have a look. But how do you set it up in a warehouse?
It's, there's a lot of layers to it. I mean, one of the things I obviously did was that I researched what other rinks do here and where they go wrong. And so I was able. There's one thing like building a rink. There's another thing running a rink, because when you're designing a rink and when you're building a rink, that's when you have all your enthusiasm.
Yeah.
But like running a rink's a whole different story, and you've got to economically run it correctly. There's no millionaire behind me. Like, I have my house guaranteed on this. I have my parents' house guaranteed on this. Like, I roll the dice.
Your ass is on the line, isn't it?
Everything is on the line, which I kind of like. Like, I like that.
Is that the fear and the fire inside to make it work?
100%. And I think that kind of, if I'm being honest with you, that's what I kind of had as a player. Like, I was very ambitious. I always backed myself. I just wanted to achieve. I wanted to dream. And that's kind of got me where I was as a hockey player. And now it's got me to where I am today. And there's a lot that goes on, like behind the scenes. We're constantly, ambient air temperature is very, very important in a rink. Like, I walk into a rink now, and the first thing I do is I look at the ceiling. It's the first thing I do.
Yeah.
And then I go over and I look at the snow pit. like anyone watching me would just think I'm a freak. I actually don't watch the ice. I go in and I see the setup, like where's, for some rinks they don't have a dehumidifier, but we won't get into that. But just kind of like how it's all set up, where the entrances to the door is, like it's really, really important, like how, like the temperature inside the rink, because that plays around with your ice temperature.
Yeah.
And just being able to separate, like, even like as a human being, like when you walk into a rink, you're bringing in heat.
Yeah.
So that transfers onto the ice. So then your chiller kicks in. So your ice plant, that will start working harder. And then your dehumidifier was taking out the moisture. So like any business, trying to control your electricity bill is extremely hard. Like the whole thing that went down with like Ukraine and Russia, like my electricity bill like doubled in a week.
I can imagine.
And you're like, Jesus Christ. But you just keep plotting away, and then ultimately, like the success of what Ozone is now, and then people like what I feel success is that we have an enormous amount of returning customers. We have a really good reputation, and what we do on the ice, people get their money's worth. And for me, that's success. So take away. So like, if we made £1 a year, or if we made £1 million a year, it would make no difference to me. With regards to how I feel about Ozone, it's the product that we have on there. So, in April, it's the first time we're going to do a testing camp. So I'm going to get data on all the players. I want to get data on the ice with regards to their speed and their agility and mobility. Root Quiney has just, he's literally, I think he's gone home now, but he's building a gym here as well. So he's the strength and conditioning coach for the Guildford Flames and the the England program. And then we also have Colin from MG1. So like it's not just me, like I bring in like highly skilled people. Like I like to be surrounded by people that are smarter than me or different ideas to me. So the rink itself has just turned into kind of a hub of, if you want top-notch training, then like this is where you come.
Yeah. Is that though the thing? Because I think a lot of people would, and myself included, when I've spoken to other people, would be rushing to say, let's franchise this. Let's get 4 of these places all over.
I get an offer every week.
But obviously, as you're saying there, the reputation is what you have in Bracknell.
Every week I get an email. Every week I get an email. Hey, Danny, love what you're doing at Ozone. Me or someone I know can get the finances. We can build another one. What do you say? The first thing I say is, who are your coaches? Because if you don't have the coaches, I'm not putting my name to it. Because of what the standard that we have set here at Ozone, my model is extremely easy for me to franchise out. So I could build 10 rinks in the next 6 months. But I'm going to build them, and they're not going to be run right, so they're going to be bankrupt in a year.
Yeah.
And most important to me is that people are going to have an expectation of going into these other Ozone rinks, and they're not going to get the coaching that they get here. And my name's on the line for that. And I don't want anyone spending money that they don't get what I consider the Ozone training.
Yeah.
And it's really, really important to me.
And now I'm going to sound like a dinosaur, right? So I'm old, right? I appreciate I'm old. I'm the oldest person in the room, right? I'm the oldest person on the bench. Like, what the current, and I've been away for a while. I had a year off coaching altogether, and then away from this league for a long time. And it's turned into like a bit of a rat league, right? Where there's players around that will they basically just go around and do whatever the hell they like. Because if someone says to them, "Oh, you're going to have to fight me now," they'll just go, "Nah," and just skate off. Or they'll cover up the player that, has tried to fight and will end up getting a penalty. God knows what Dops are going to make of it, et cetera, et cetera. And, like I said, I'm old, right? But I knew when I was a player, if I hit someone from behind, if I ran into a goalie, slashed the goalie in the hand when he was covering the puck, I'm probably going to get punched in the face for it, right? Yeah. And that's a decision that I would make, right? I might be trying to get my team going. I might go and hit the goal on purpose, so someone grabs me, and it might, my team's a bit flat, or whatever. But it's got to a point where the way it's officiated and the bans, the DOPS stuff, it's just allowed people to be kind of weasels who just go around doing what they want. And then when someone goes, you can't do that, and they go, what are you going to do about it? Well, I'm going to fight you. They're going, well, I'm not fighting you. And it's probably me that needs to change, mate. I've said this a few times, like, maybe it's me that needs to change. The game has changed. I am a firm, honestly, whether it's one of my players or an opposition player, I don't want to see people getting hit from behind. I don't want to see deliberate hits to the head. Sometimes hits to the head happen, right? But I don't want to see deliberate ones. I don't want to see nasty stuff, nasty stick infractions, people getting sticked in the face and things like that.
Yeah.
But I want hockey to still be hockey. And I think that DOPS have got it wrong. I think that if someone gets run from behind in an avoidable, sometimes guys turn and they get hit from behind, it's an accident, right? Or someone runs someone and elbows them square in the head. Those guys should get banned. I am fully on board with that. And if that's one of my players, I'll tell them, well, yeah, you deserve that. I don't want to see that. But it's also then just assisted other players to actually be just as dirty in other ways. And it's took that kind of honour out of the game a little bit, where you've got to answer for your own actions and things like that. So I've not been a big fan of it. We've tried to adjust as best we can, but we've been hit by it, and I don't think there's a team in the league that haven't, right? Everyone's
I think everyone's kind of suffered the ill sort of misfortune of being on the end of some of this DOP stuff. Obviously, a lot of it came out after the Darcy Flanagan and Joe Llewellyn incident and whatnot. There was a lot of stuff that came out after that, but like I say, hopefully moving forward, it should be changing.
You look at that, and I spoke to Shane Moore and stuff at the time, and I was like, look, that was really early on in the season.
Mm.
And I remember that day when that ban came out, we were away in Solent the first time we went to Solent. I went in the room and said, boys, I don't even know what's a penalty anymore. I was like, just be careful. But I don't know what I'm telling you to be careful of, because I don't know what to tell you can't do.
No.
Because I still cannot. I don't care about him getting banned because it's got nothing to do with me. But I still, if I watch that video again, which it still sometimes pops up, I cannot for the life of me see where that ban came from.
A huge thank you to all of my guests that joined me this year. The 9 clips there, really, really were really great chat, starting right back from early in the season with Colin Booth from MG1, finishing, of course, with Cliff just before the playoffs, which was such an amazing weekend that we had this year. So many people have messaged me and asked me about the videos from the playoff finals, both the South 1 and South 2 that took place at Alexandra Palace. They were brilliantly live streamed by Tim and Lauren from MK Thunder that live stream all of their games. And they were commentated on, of course, by myself and Chris Beale, who runs the play-by-play on the Streatham Twitter feed during their games. We don't know as yet. Our understanding is that the games were going to be reviewed for anything Department of Player Safety, anything disciplinary. Once that had happened, they would then be made available to be downloaded, I believe, for a small charge to be downloaded and kept through the England Ice Hockey Ticket Go platform. Time-wise, we just don't know when that's going to be, but that is the plan. So thank you so much for listening. That is definitely it now for this season. Keep listening to ZPG Ice Maidens, and we'll see you next week.
Sports Social Podcast Network.